Now, for the threat modeling, we are identifying assets and threats. Against for assets, we have three data and interface assets and 12 component assets. Then threats against it, ORAN, OCloud, of course, the open source software, physical attacks against radio networks, and this one is a bit, I would say, new, no, the attack against machine learning. And there are various studies and some POCs, no, on how to manipulate machine learning by introducing um, say traffic, no, or information, no, that is being ingested by machine learning and gonna be used in the future, no. And we're calling it adversarial machine learning. If we could introduce a malicious traffic and the machine learning component would treat that as normal, then you might be able to attack it. Then aside from that, now we have stakeholders. Now we could identify stakeholders in the threat modeling. No? MNOs, technology providers, tech admins, integrators and testers, and of course yung what we're protecting against, no, the attackers, which basically is one of these, no, either cyber criminals who want of course most of this has some hidden agenda, no, either they are against the organization, or but for cyber criminals it's mainly for profit. There are cyber terrorists. These are they have some beliefs system, that you are against them and they want to cause you harm. There's also the political aspects of it, no, like the activists and nation states threat actors, since this is gonna be open is gonna be used in critical infrastructure slash communication infrastructure. Various nation states would want access to your infrastructure, and they would move heaven and earth, no, to gain access to that. And I've seen uh, a lot of this nation state either compromise, let's say, a supply chain, no, to have one of their implants and modules incorporated on your components, or even buy, employees, via insider threat to execute some code, have an implant on one workstation, and they'll do the rest. And for insider threat, again, some of them are not necessarily motivated by money. Others are just disgruntled employee against the organization, which is very hard to detect since they had access. Um, Others naman, it's more of they were threatened, no, by, let's say, a nation state, no, to perform on their behalf. We also encountered that on some of my investigations before. And again, uh, one of the most concerning part actually here will be the insider threat, because they could be colluded, no, but and intimidated by cyber criminals, cyber terrorists, and nation state, no, to perform stuff on their behalf, and it's hard to detect, no, which is real and which is not. On one case, let me tell a story. Ransomware here in the Philippines. They had an insider, and what they instructed with the insider is, we're gonna send you an email. So just open that attachment and double click and then execute the macro, and then we'll do the rest. With We are highly likely sure that that employee was part of the incident. We're not sure if it was through intimidation or monetary benefit or both, no. But on our part, no, it's hard to basically pinpoint that, even though we're highly likely sure, no, it's hard to pinpoint that he was colluding with a threat actor, because what he just did was open up a weird email and then double click the attachment and run it. That's it. And yeah, it cost the organization uh, a very expensive, no, learning experience just with that. And then part of this would be security measures, no, inside threat modeling documentation, inside requirement specification documents, protocol specifications, and then we'll do risk assessment, no, and tag, no, various components and risks that we have identified as either low, medium, or high severity. So for the threat modeling, this is how they are interacting with. I got this from Security Gen. It's uh, once you have defined the asset, okay, and threats, you try to now start mapping, these threats to asset on the third component. And what you want to do here is basically identify which data asset is part, of what ORAN threat and what other threats could be identified on those specific components. And we could now start assigning risk level, again, dependent on four uh, major component on the risk rating. For security, we are always, sorry, it's five, no? For security, yung pinaka-common was the CIA, no? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. No? But now we have a component of privacy, no? And authorization. So we are now considering five risk type in Open RAN. This is an expansion, no, from our, the vanilla security that you only deal with confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Okay. So we have here a sample risk analysis, no, based on BSI. It's a German company. Like, from the victim's perspective, no, is the victim the end user, the state, or the telecom operator? And we would also be factoring in, no, let's say, who's gonna attack us? Is it the end user that's using our mobile device? Is it an outsider, no, from the organization? Or it could be combined, no? An outsider pretending to be end user by getting a SIM card or access to our infrastructure. Could be an insider. It could also be a RAN, no? Service provider, no? Or a cloud service provider. Kasi we've seen some sample of it on SS7 attacks, no, with various rogue telcos, no, that's redirecting users to their infrastructure for an intelligence agency to sniff, no, the call and the messages passing through or destined, no, for a target victim. And for BSI, no, they also identify assets, no, o cloud interfaces, apps, and machine learning, and which targets, which risk type, no, are being targeted. Are they targeting confidentiality? Are they targeting the integrity of the information or the availability of the system? No? Even just downing one component Open Run could mean outage, no, full outage. Um, and of course the authenticity, no, and privacy of our how do you call this, the data, no, that's being operated on and processed in Open RAN. For security measures, there are two based on BSI. No? It's either the base one would be, of course, 3GPP oriented, no? And there's also the ORAN based security measures. But I would say a lot of the ORAN are newer, no? Of course, than 3GPP, but it's based on 3GPP. It was just an upgraded part. And then we'll do BSI did risk assessments like low, medium, or high, no? Based on risk rating. And I like how BSI did this, no, when they have this table, no, per risk, and they would say, no, okay, from like example here, from the perspective of the stakeholder, no, and we have, let's say, the end user, the state, and network operator. How vulnerable are they, no, for an outsider attack? As you can see here, no, maraming green, so they are actually protected for confidentiality, integrity, except for availability, no? Kasi availability, again, one rogue mobile phone, no, could cause an outage on a vulnerable cell tower, no? And that's from an outsider perspective, no? And well, again, outsider could also be a user, so they are incorporating that thing, no? But if you could see on this basic table, no, if it was an insider, um uh, an insider could easily attack not end user, a state, and most components ng network operators. No? But again, it's most likely that they just don't have direct access to other systems that could impact confidentiality and integrity. But for availability and authenticity, it's no-brainer, no, if it's an insider. Okay. And yeah, it's just an example, no, on one subset, no, that I extracted from the BSI documentation for their 5G run risk analysis. Okay. And it's gonna be a required reading for this course. No? So this was a bit lengthy. No? It's around 79 pages. It's technical, especially if you're not into security. No? So we're estimating around 5 hours of reading here, and of course we'll also be requesting I know this um key highlights, no, report on how you understood this and maybe some use case, no, if I'm implementing this module, these are stuff that I want to uh, consider. No? Okay. So next we'll have some discussion lang, no, on service management and orchestration top risk. No? Like if you have information of network information data, no? Where are these configurations and topologies and KPIs, no, located, and would anyone be able to access it? No, again, even insiders, typically you want to do segregation of duties, no, to isolate that one user could only access this part of the component of Open RAN, another user could only access this. So it's gonna be no single user could cause ideally a huge impact on the environment, but of course the heads of this department could also go rogue. No? But again, this is where the trust comes into play. If the CIO or CTO that had access to a lot more components, have gone rogue, and it has happened in the past. Uh, how do we protect, no, our critical infrastructure with that type of exposure? Okay? Like even simple, no, like tampering of this function descriptors, no, could cause degradation, no, or service denial. So this network information data, no, must of course be protected at all costs. And not every user, no, even internal ones, would need to have access, even just reading on it. No? Like for the network APIs, no, let's say the capacity, they would be able to determine it, and they could know at one point would a certain component would overload. You leave that to specific key personnel, no, that manages this.